Blessings from our Heavenly Father. It is an honor for me to be here this morning and lead you all in prayer. I ask that you may bow your head and close your eyes as we communicate with our Father. Almighty and eternal God, who through Christ Jesus has revealed your glory to all nations, please protect and preserve Belize, our beloved country. God of might, wisdom, and justice, please assist our Belizean government and people with your Holy Spirit of counsel and fortitude. Let the light of your divine wisdom direct their plans and endeavors, so that with your help we may attain our just objectives. With your guidance, may all our endeavors tend to peace, social justice, liberty, national happiness, the increase of industry, sobriety, and useful knowledge. We pray, O God of mercy, for all of us, that we may be blessed in the knowledge and sanctified in the observance of your most holy law, that we may be preserved in union and in that peace which the world itself cannot give. And after enjoying the blessing of this life, please admit us, Lord, dear Lord, to that eternal reward that you have prepared for those who love you. Amen. Thank you.
Announcement by the Speaker. Good morning, members. I take this opportunity to bring your attention to a few things before we get the orders of the day on the way. Today we meet in the month of October. I recognize annually that this is celebrated and recognized as Breast Cancer Month. It is a time of the year dedicated to education and awareness on this health issue that has impacted many of our families, friends, and those in our communities. No matter the race, religion, sexuality, occupation, income, or education, breast cancer has touched someone we each know. I encourage us members to help promote and encourage the importance of early detection and screening. We, of course, salute all cancer warriors, and I take the time to acknowledge and thank the Belize Cancer Society for their impressive ongoing work on cancer awareness, education, outreach, and counseling. On October 12th, last week Thursday, the world recognized it as World Sight Day. The National Assembly partnered with the Belize Council for the Visually Impaired, BCVI. As members will be aware, it is the country's only non-private provider of eye care services aimed to combat avoidable blindness and improve quality of life. Last year, the United Nations General Assembly unanimously passed its first resolution on vision entitled Vision for Everyone, Accelerating Action to Achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Today, in the gallery, allow me to recognize the BCVI team who will be available throughout the course of today to conduct basic eye screenings to all parliamentarians. I take this time to acknowledge Freddie Nicholson, the senior optometrist, Jackie Hemsley, the primary air care manager, and Carla Ayers Musa, the executive director of BCVI. BCVI signed on to this global initiative led by the International Agency for the Prevention of Blindness, IAPB, calling for the promotion of eye care health with the support of members of parliament. I'm happy to report members of the National Assembly Staff Committee and the staff of the National Assembly did their eye screening on World Sight Day last Thursday, and I encourage members to take up the kind service being offered by BCVI today to get checked in an effort to promote annual eye screening and to check your own eyes' health. I'm very pleased to see that I've been informed already, a few members have already made the trek upstairs It only takes 5 minutes. I encourage members to do so. This year, the NCFC, in partnership with UNICEF, the Ministry of Education, and with the support of the National Assembly of Belize, will once again be holding the 3rd National Children's Parliament on Friday, November the 11th. Members, this is an initiative that creates awareness and education of the parliamentary process and provides a space and opportunity for youth to advocate for issues that matter to the youth sector. It is also an opportunity to view the Parliament through the lens of our youth. Today, we have a few of this year's youth parliamentarians in the gallery who will be participating in November 11th Youth Parliament. In the gallery, allow me to acknowledge from the National Committee for Families and Children, Bernicia Augustine, the Executive Director. We have Shakira Sutherland, as well from the NCFC, working on the Youth Parliament. And of course, the youth parliamentarians themselves, 4 of them who will be participating. We have Asher Torres, I believe from Cayo Central constituency, and he will be representing the Leader of Government Business at the Senate. We have Thomas Serut. Did I get that correct, Mr. Serut? And Thomas Serut is representing Cayo Northeast, and he will be taking on the role of Prime Minister on November 11th. Then we have Heather Lee Stewart. Heather Lee Stewart comes from Orange Walk East, and she will be representing the area for Orange Walk East. And we have Honorable Jada Wiltshire, and she'll be representing Belize Rural South, and she hails from Cayo South. We also have with us the consultant through the NCFC, Mrs. Elena Del Cid, who will be working very closely with the youths between now and November the 11th. We hope during the course of today, the youth parliamentarians can meet their designated members of parliament, and note that the NCFC will be coordinating meetings during the week of October 24th to 28th for the participating youth to meet all members of parliament that they will be representing. November 9th and 10th members will be the youth parliament camp at Monkey Bay, where the youth will be preparing for their debates and practice the use of the standing orders. This year, I'm happy to report that the plan by NCFC includes at least 1 youth parliamentarian with diverse abilities, and to provide for sign language to assist this young parliamentarian. The Youth Parliament will be held the morning of Friday, November 11th, and we encourage the support of all members of Parliament to our young leaders of tomorrow. Finally, on UN Belize initiatives, I'm happy to report with the support of UN Women, the National Assembly is working towards a brief session on understanding gender budgeting and gender sensitization with all parliamentarians. We are looking at the morning of November 24th to conduct this brief 2-hour session. This is timely as it is on the heels of the annual 16 days of activism, which runs from the 25th November to the 10th December 2022. It also complements the official signing of the letter of intent on the collaboration of work with the UN Belize office, which will take place on December 1st in Belmopan. Before I close, members, I would like to also inform you that today we were able to provide members of Parliament with their own unique password for the Wi-Fi. And as of next meeting, we should be able to expand that so that visitors in the gallery during House meetings can have access to Wi-Fi. It is an effort as part of the Open Parliament Initiative and something that is quite common in many of the other parliaments in our jurisdiction. Members, thank you for the attention to these announcements. We now begin today's meeting, and all are reminded of our standing orders on parliamentary discourse, language, respect, 42B, silent, please, members on his or her feet, so that we conduct today's debate. Members of the gallery, welcome.
Madam Speaker, can you allow me to say 2 quick announcements? And first of all, I want to recognize the young parliamentarians and when I look at our young people, I always feel that Belize is going to be in good hands, and quite impressed. I've been going through some of the MSC Roadshow, and the Roadshow is all young people that are the entrepreneurs, and so I'm quite impressed. And as I look at these young Belizeans in front of us, again, it fills me full of hope. But that said, Madam Speaker, give me the opportunity to quickly congratulate the Belize High School, or BHS, who won the first, the Robotics International, the first global challenge. It's a robotic challenge. It's a Olympic-style international robotic competition that takes place in different countries every year. I'm told that the teams, they work together to complete tasks in game teams around one of the greatest challenges facing the planet. And here we have little Belize taking on huge countries, much more developed countries, and our students, our Belizeans, won the first gold medal. Secondly, Madam Speaker, I want to also congratulate the former Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Said Musa. He worked for 50 years as a leader of the opposition to be conferred a degree, doctorate in laws from the University of Belize in the recognition of his service to the people. He has had a stellar 50 years of service to Belize. He had served in so many different positions, from Minister of Education, the Attorney General, Minister of Economic Development, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Finance, and also Prime Minister, and the former leader of the oldest, most successful, hardworking, true political party of the country, the People's United Party. You could clap, leader of the opposition. That said, Madam Speaker, on behalf of all of us, I'm sure on behalf of both sides of the aisle, we want to congratulate the Right Honorable Said Musa for life of public service to the people and the country of Belize. Thank you.
Paper.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, I rise to present and lay on the paper, sessional paper, HR 128/2/113, the annual report of the Development Finance Corporation for the year 2021.
Honorable members, that paper is ordered to lie on the table.
Presentation of reports from select committees.
I recognize the Honorable Chairman of the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee.
Morning, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to lay on the table reports number HR 129/1/13, report from the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee on the Senior Courts Bill 2022. Report number HR 130/1/13, Madam Speaker, report from the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee on the Belize Constitution, 12th Amendment Bill 2022. And report, Madam Speaker, number HR 131/1/13, report from the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee on the People's Constitution Commission Bill 2022. Thank you.
Honorable members, those reports are ordered to lie on the table. I recognize the Honorable Chairperson of the Public Service, Labor, Industry and Trade Committee.
Madam Speaker, I rise to lay on the table reports number HR 132/1/13, report from the Public Service, Labor, Industry and Trade Committee on the Patents Amendment Bill 2022. Number HR 133/1/13, report from the Public Service, Labor, Industry and Trade Committee on the Non-Governmental Organizations Amendment Bill 2022. Thank you.
Honorable members, those reports are ordered to lie on the table.
Statement by ministers.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to give a short statement concerning the flooding caused by Hurricane Julia. As a nation, we are very grateful that we were spared from a direct hit from Hurricane Julia, which made landfall on the 8th of October off the coast of Nicaragua. And certainly, our hearts and prayers go to the people in Nicaragua, especially on the Atlantic coast, where there was great damage and some loss of life. As I said, while Julia never reached our shores, it is its outer rain bands and outer wind bands that hit Belize, and it produced the heaviest rainfalls in southern and the coastal parts of Belize between Sunday and Monday, the 9th and the 10th of October, with the most rains falling over the western part of the country. And whilst that in itself is bad in the western part, a lot of the rain that now is hitting in the Petén area across the border, a lot of that water now is coming into Belize because they have cleaned out most of their forests. So the water just rushes through and floods and adds to the flooding in Belize. I think this is an appropriate time for me to digress just for a second, Madam Speaker, that we need to watch how we're doing the kind of agriculture that we're doing. The large scale agriculture where we clean out all the trees, we need to stop. We need to see how we can ensure that we can keep some of the trees and some of the vegetation in place. Because by having those in place, it prevents the water to come into as floods, one. And secondly, it also gives time for the water to be soaked into earth and to be able to fill our aquifers that are under the ground. And I'm appealing to members of cabinet, and I know we've discussed some of it with the Minister of Agriculture and the Ministry of Sustainable Development, that we need to come with a plan to ensure that we no longer be cleaning out hundreds or if not thousands of acres, all the trees, because we want to do some agriculture. We have to ensure that we leave some trees, that we be able to leave vegetations close to the rivers and creeks, to be able to protect the water and to protect our stocks and to protect the livelihood of our citizens. As I mentioned, Madam Speaker, the main effects of Hurricane Julia is damage to homes, subsistence farming, and people's livelihoods, especially the residents of the Belize, Toledo, and Cayo districts. Our infrastructure, crops, livestock, household items, people's personal assets, even like vehicles. We saw one, I think it was in Benke, where actually the heavy floodings actually washed away a small SUV. And equipment were all affected by those who were in the way of the rising waters. Initial reports from the Ministry of Disaster Risk Management is that 50 communities and approximately 20,000 people have been affected. Of course, some more than others. As we speak, we still have 4 shelters that are remaining open, 3 in the western village of Kahal Creek, and 1 in the village of More Tomorrow. As of Saturday, this past Saturday, 96 persons were being housed in these 4 shelters. Of course, Madam Speaker, we are happy that no lives were lost, but for sure, many lives were affected, with some families losing everything due to the flooding. Preliminary assessments indicate that costs for the impacted communities are estimated to be in the tens of millions of dollars, with the higher amount attributed to the agriculture, tourism, and infrastructure sectors. In San Ignacio, BWSL wells were compromised and storage capacity is being used to supply water, resulting in limited supply of water in San Ignacio and Santa Elena. I must commend the area representative for Cayo, Northeast, Honorable Habet. I think it was yesterday he was out there personally in Bausa, ensuring that the residents of, Billy White and Santa Familia to have drinking water, because again, the floodings messed up their wells, and not only the wells, but even the pump was under mud, and so they had to dig it out from the mud and trying to clean it. And hopefully today, tomorrow, soon, by tomorrow, the water system is going to be up and running. Our experts tells us that the water is making its way into the Belize River Valley. And so communities along the Belize River Valley are bracing for the floods. And I hope that they take this opportunity to be able to prepare, for instance, to move the livestock into highland. I remember in 2020, in November the 19th, I was along with the Minister of Agriculture. We had the Mennonites and Blue Creek that were out there dragging out the cattle from the flooded areas into higher land. So I'm appealing to them to prepare now, because we know that this is coming. This means that we're going to have more loss and damage to the agriculture sector and to homes along the river valley. But let's hope that it's not going to be as bad as it was in November of 2020. Of course, as a government, we're providing all the assistance in these communities to ensure the safety of life and property. At last week's Tuesday Cabinet meeting, the Cabinet requested a damage assessment and needs analysis by the relevant authorities, and we have already approved disbursements through the contingency fund, the budget contingency fund. We have $5 million that we can draw down for emergencies to be able to help address the immediate needs of those affected. And we expect that at the next House meeting, then we can come back and give the proper accounting as to what these funds were used, and that we can approve those expenditures and whatever else will be needed. The Ministry of Infrastructure has also indicated they have also activated teams in the affected areas, and their preliminary damage assessment is already over $3 million. Let me assure everyone that our administration will do all that is necessary to assist those affected by this storm, Madam Speaker. Together we will get our crops replanted and will fix the broken rooftops. Our damaged infrastructure will be repaired. Through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we are already seeking out our international partners for assistance. Also, we will continue to stress that the international community, especially the developed countries, must recognize the importance of coming up with a mechanism to address what we call loss and damage because of climate change as a key component for us to adapting to, as I mentioned, climate change. In the meantime, though, all of us here at home must not let our guards down. the hurricane season is not over. Indeed, this is when we're most vulnerable. As we know, the United States is starting to get cooler or colder, and so the cold fronts do not prevent the hurricanes from going up north. They hold them down into our region. So this is a time when we in the Western Caribbean must be at our highest levels of vigilance and preparedness. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Introduction of bills.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, this is the Customs and Excise Duty Amendment Bill for 2022. Madam Speaker, I rise to introduce a bill for an act to amend the Customs and Excise Duties Act, Chapter 48 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to implement the Customs and Excise Tariff and Trade Classification based on the 2022 version of the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System, to implement the 9th phase of reduction of duties in accordance with the CARIFORUM EU Economic Partnership Agreement, to implement the 9th phase of reduction of duties in accordance with the CARIFORUM UK Economic Partnership Agreement, to implement the first phase of the reduction of duties in accordance with the Belize-Taiwan Economic Cooperation Agreement, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Madam Speaker, this bill has the recommendation of the Cabinet. Just to quickly add, Madam Speaker, basically all we're doing is just following up with agreements that have been previously signed with Belize and as part of the CARIFORUM of the Caribbean Community with the EU, that we are going to be harmonizing taxes. They're reducing some of their taxes, we're reducing likewise, and since the UK has left the European Union, now we have to sign a separate one along with the United Kingdom. And now that we have signed, successfully finished the negotiations with the trade agreement with the country of Taiwan, the same process has to start. So we are starting to embark on reducing certain taxes from our end, and Taiwan is going to be the same. This is being done to be able to foster trade, to help us in Belize to be able to have access for our products into these countries. As I said, Madam Speaker, this bill has the recommendation of the Cabinet. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, that bill is referred to the Finance and Economic Development Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Bill for an act to amend the Customs and Excise Duties Act, Chapter 48 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to implement the Customs and Excise Tariff and Trade Classification based on the 2022 version of the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System, to implement the 9th phase of reduction of duties in accordance with the CARIFORUM EU Economic Partnership Agreement, to implement the 9th phase of reduction of duties in accordance with the CARIFORUM UK Economic Partnership Agreement, to implement the first phase of reduction of duties in accordance with the Belize-Taiwan Economic Cooperation Agreement, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Science, and Technology.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to introduce a bill for an act to amend the Marriage Act, Chapter 174 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to provide for the late filing of marriages, to empower the registrar to make regulations for the late filing of marriages, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Madam Speaker, this bill has the recommendation of the Cabinet. Just very, very quickly, Madam Speaker, this is really just a sort of administrative amendment to correct really a loophole in the law. The Vital Statistics Unit, as you will appreciate, is responsible for the filing of all marriages that are performed in Belize. And that is done under the Marriage Act, Chapter 174 of the laws of Belize. And under Section 61(2), the Marriage Act requires that all marriages that are performed in any particular month, the registrar must register and file those marriages within 10 days of the following month, 10 days of the following month. So as you will appreciate, that has not been done, that is not being done. And so this amendment is to correct that loophole and to allow and to provide for the registrar to have the authority and the power to authorize the late filing of marriages and to authorize and empower the registrar to make rules in accordance with that authority for the late filing of marriages. So it's a very straightforward, as I said, administrative amendment so that the duplicate marriage register, which is what is filed, that it will allow for that to be filed late and therefore not affect in any way the validity of those marriages. So a very straightforward administrative amendment.
Honorable members, that bill is referred to the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Bill for an act to amend the Marriage Act, Chapter 174 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to provide for the late filing of marriages, to empower the registrar to make regulations for the late filing of marriages, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Motions relating to the business or sittings of the House.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, I move that at its rising today, the House adjourn to a date to be fixed by the Speaker.
Honorable members, the question is that the House at its rising today adjourn to a date fixed by the Speaker. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Public business, government business, motions.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, this is the 2018 general increase in authorized capital stock for the International Bank of Reconstruction and Development and the International Finance Corporation Motion 2022. Madam Speaker, I move whereas Belize is a member of the International Bank of Reconstruction and Development, the IBRD, the bank, and the International Finance Corporation, the IFC, both being institutions under the World Bank Group. And whereas the governors of the IBRD on the 1st of October 2018 adopted resolution number 663 of 2018 general capital increase and the resolution number 664, the 2018 selective capital increase, the SCI, which approved an increase in the authorized capital stock of the bank to enable the bank to support additional lending for development priorities of its member countries. And whereas, similarly, resolutions number 271 and 272 were also adopted in 2018, which approved an increase in the authorized capital stock of the IFC. And whereas in accordance with Resolution 663 and 664, Belize is required to subscribe to 53 allocated CGI shares and 7 allocated SCI shares for the IRBD, 2 expressed in United States dollars at the rate of $120,635 per share, amounting to a total of $7,238,100. Of course, this is US dollars. And whereas in addition, and in accordance with Resolution 271 and 272, Belize is required to subscribe to 382 allocated CGI shares and 578 allocated SCI shares for the IFC, expressed in US dollars at the rate of $1,000 per share, amounting to a total of $960,000. And whereas Belize is required to make payments for the amount of US $2,289,397.70 for the IBRD and an IFC additional capital shares, which represent the paid-in capital stock for the IBRD and the total amount for the IFC. And whereas the total remaining amount of the US $5,908,702 is in callable capital stock and is payable if and when called by the bank. And whereas the payment deadlines for the paid-in capital program of the $2,287,089,397.70 US are as follows. 1st October 2023 for IBRD, the SCI and GCI shares totaling US $1,329,397.70, and 15th April 2023 for the IFC SCI shares totaling US $579,000. 15th April 2025 for the IFC CGI shares totaling US $382,000. And where there is no specific provisions in the International Financial Organization Act, Chapter 265 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, or any other law to enable the Minister of Finance to subscribe to such shares or make such contributions, and whereas consequently, the government of Belize is desirous of obtaining the approval of the National Assembly by way of resolution for the 3 subscription and payment of Belize's additional CGI and SCI allocated shares for the IBRD and the IFC. Now therefore, be it resolved that this Honorable House, having satisfied that the above mentioned additional capital subscriptions would be beneficial to the interests of Belize in achieving better development outcomes, authorizes the Minister of Finance to sign the instruments of subscription on all related documents and make payments before the indicated deadlines to give effect to both the IBRD and the IFC capital subscriptions. This motion has the recommendations of the Cabinet. Madam Speaker, if you to allow me just to give a little bit more of explanation, because I know that what I just read here is very technical. But Madam Speaker, what we are seeking is the approval of the Honorable House for the additional capital subscription by Belize for the International Bank of Reconstruction and Development, otherwise known as the World Bank, and its private sector arm, the International Finance Corporation, or the IFC. Madam Speaker, Belize is a member of both the World Bank and the IFC. As we mentioned, in 2018, the executive directors and the board of governors of both institutions approved a capital increase to support additional lending for growth and development priorities of its member countries. Now, Belize is, we have the Minister of Finance is a member of the board of directors. We are one of the governors, so we knew fully well what was taking place. So therefore, as a member country, Belize is required to subscribe essentially on a pro rata basis. We have to pay our share. And the required sum is US $2,289,397.70. As is par for the course, okay, the borough administration so badly mismanaged the government's finances that it failed to subscribe, pay the subscription sum. They agreed to pay it and they never paid what was required for them to pay. Now deadlines for payments are now approaching, and my administration must now make good and honor our commitments as a member country. Yes, it will cost us a couple $1 million, but we will pay in installments in an interest-free basis to minimize the burden. At the same time, I would be remiss in not highlighting the benefits we have enjoyed as a member of the World Bank, especially since my administration took office. The facts are that the past UDP borough administration had been internationally recognized as poor stewards of government's finances and the economy. The World Bank therefore unsparingly lent to Belize in those years of UDP mismanagement. During our PUP administration, we have already secured 2 facilities with the World Bank totaling over $62 million. $12 million to support our COVID response, including support on a partially retroactive acquisition and development of COVID vaccines, and $50 million to increase agricultural productivity, including the adoption of climate-smart agricultural approaches among project beneficiaries. These are both extremely concessional financing terms. We have also overseen the due disbursements and administration of over $23 million from the World Bank for social protection in the heights of the fallout from COVID pandemic, reaching over 20,000 households. Mr. Leader of the Opposition, you always say, well, no, they do nothing. We have already reached out to 20,000 households, and more than 86,000 individuals have benefited from this work that this PUP government is doing. Is there more to do? Of course there's more to do, and this government will do more. To date, we have yet to see any financing by the IFC for our private sector, but soon we expect financial and technical support both from the World Bank and the IFC. This support will help in our transition towards energy independence and security, which will result in lower cost of power when we start using more locally produced solar energy. Madam Speaker, we look forward to the support of this Honorable House on this resolution for capital increase subscription and payment to the World Bank and the IFC. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member from Mesopotamia, Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We support the opposition, does support this motion, but I'd just like to make clear that the World Bank severed ties with Belize under Prime Minister Musa, and it was renewed under the United Democratic Party Prime Minister Barrow. Thank you.
Honorable members, that motion is referred to the Finance and Economic Development Committee for examination, consideration, and report. I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Development, and Investment.
They started lending the borough government, but pretty soon they stopped lending because of the reckless mismanagement of the economy and the corruption that occurred under the borough administration. So here we go. Madam Speaker, I seek the indulgence of this honorable House to have the motion to be taken through all stages this day. We hope to make the first payment by the 31st of October. So I'm asking the indulgence of the House to take it through 3 stages today. Thank you.
Honorable members, the question is that this motion be taken through all its stages this day. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Announcement by the Speaker.
Before I proceed on announcement, Honorable Prime Minister, given the time that we're at, I'll ask if invoke Standing Order 12A.
Madam Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 12.8, I move that the proceedings on the order paper may be entered upon and proceeded with at this day's sitting at any hour due opposed.
Honorable members, the question is that the proceedings on the order paper may be entered upon and proceeded with at this day's sitting at any hour due opposed. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. Honorable members, it has been agreed that the 2018 general increase in authorized capital stock of the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the International Finance Corporation Motion 2022 passed this day. As you are well aware, under Standing Order number 74, all proposed legislation, messages, petitions, motions, and other matters relating to the subject mentioned under the title of each standing committee shall be referred by the House to such committee for examination, consideration, and report to the House. The only logical way for this to be done, other than by suspension of standing orders, is for me to suspend the sitting to enable the Finance and Economic Development Committee to examine, consider, and report to the House on the motion. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. The sitting is therefore suspended until the Finance and Economic Development Committee has concluded its business.
Presentation of report from Select Committee.
Before I call on the Honorable Chairman, members, allow me to acknowledge Mr. Christopher Broster, who has joined us. Some of you may recognize him doing sign language already with some of the statements made by members of Parliament, and he has graciously offered to assist NCFC on November 11th, providing similar services at the Youth Parliament. Mr. Broster, thank you. I recognize the Honorable Chairman of the Finance, I recognize the Honorable Chairman of the Finance and Economic Development Committee.
Madam Speaker, I rise to lay on the table report number HR 134/1/13, report from the Finance and Economic Development Committee on the 2018 general increase in authorized capital stock of the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the International Finance Corporation Motion 2022. Thank you.
Honorable members, that report is ordered to lie on the table.
Public business, government business, motions.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, this is the 2018 general increase in authorized capital stock of the International Bank of Reconstruction and Development and the International Finance Corporation Motion 2022. With your permission not to repeat the recitals of the motion, I move, now therefore, be it resolved that this Honorable House, being satisfied that the above-mentioned additional capital subscriptions would be beneficial to the interests of Belize in achieving better development outcomes, authorizes the Minister of Finance to sign the instruments of subscription and all other related documents and make payments before the indicated deadlines to give effect to both the IBRD and the IFC capital subscriptions.
Honorable members, the question is now therefore be it resolved that this Honorable House, being satisfied that the above-mentioned additional capital subscriptions would be beneficial to the interest of Belize in achieving better development outcomes, authorizes the Minister of Finance to sign the instruments of subscription and all other related documents, to make payments before the indicated deadlines, to give effect to both the IBRD and IFC capital subscription. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bills for second reading.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Science and Technology.
Madam Speaker, I move the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Belize Constitution, Chapter 4 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to establish the senior courts of Belize and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Belize Constitution, Chapter 4 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to establish the senior courts of Belize and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a second time. I have been informed that there is a request for a division of vote on this. Deputy Clerk, please proceed.
No debate. No debate.
Madam Speaker,
Is there one second, member? Is there a clarification?
Yes, I have one question. The 12th Amendment is a part of the Senior Courts Bill, and so the reason I didn't rise to debate is because I was waiting until the Senior Courts Bill. So will they be doing two divisions?
No,
or-
the senior court comes afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah. Member for Freetown.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Because this is a constitutional amendment, Madam Speaker, which requires 3/4 of the members of the House to vote in favor of it, for it to be valid. It is a requirement that we seek a division, so that for the legal record, it is clear that at least 3/4 of the members present, 3/4 of the members of the House have voted in support of this bill. So for that reason, I would like to ask for a division in respect of this bill.
Deputy Clerk, please proceed with the division accordingly.
A division on the Belize Constitution 12th Amendment Bill 2022. The Honorable John Vincent. Support. The Honorable Francis Fonseca. The Honorable Jose Abelardo May. The Honorable Julio Sespat. The Honorable Rodwell Ferguson. The Honorable Dolores Valderramos Garcia. The Honorable Karim Musa. The Honorable Florencio Marin Jr. The Honorable Oscar Requena. The Honorable Orlando Habet. The Honorable Anthony Mahler. The Honorable Henry Charles Usher. The Honorable Michelle Shebat. The Honorable Kevin Bernard. The Honorable Abner Andre Perez. The Honorable Michael Espak. The Honorable Ramon Cervantes. The Honorable Ramiro Ramirez. The Honorable Oscar Mira.
Aye.
The Honorable Deputy Speaker. The Honorable Gilroy Usher. The Honorable Jorge Espat. The Honorable Luis Alex Balona. The Honorable Dr. Luis Zabani. The Honorable Elvia Vega Samos. The Honorable Moses Barrow. The Honorable Hugo Pat. The Honorable Tracy Panton. The Honorable Dennis Barrow. The Honorable Patrick Faber.
The results of the division are as follows. 24 yes, 2 no, 5 absences, for a total of 31. The ayes have it.
Bill for an act to amend the Belize Constitution, Chapter 4 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to establish the Senior Courts of Belize and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Science, and Technology.
Madam Speaker, this is the Senior Courts Bill 2022. I move the second reading of a bill for an act to repeal and replace the Supreme Court of Judicature Act, Chapter 91 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, and the Court of Appeal Act, Chapter 90 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to provide for new positions within the judiciary to assist in the functioning and administration of the senior courts and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. I propose to move further amendments to this bill, which have already been circulated to members, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member from Mesopotamia, Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Pleasant good morning to everyone. I'd like to join with the Prime Minister in congratulating the students at BHS for their gold medal. Definitely underlines the fact that Belizeans do have talent, and also recognize those children parliamentarians that I just had the pleasure of meeting with, as well as those shepherding that cause. Madam Speaker, also pleasant good morning to the people in Mesopotamia. Madam Speaker, the opposition cannot support this bill for the mere fact that the judiciary, as currently configured, is woefully underfunded. And this is not political hyperbole. None other than the former acting Chief Justice, in her annual presentation before she was ousted, complained about the lack of funding for the judiciary and how it compromised their ability to provide justice for all Belizeans. I believe even Madam Justice Showman has been seen complaining about not having basic things. We thank the Americans. I see they just donated $500,000 in equipment. But this government has not taken seriously its promise to properly fund the judiciary. It was a part of their Plan Belize, and they have not delivered on it, Madam Speaker. So, to understand what this reconfiguration means, it's not as simple as having the now Chief Justice oversee all of the other courts. It costs. This has more of a demand on spending than our current configuration. And if we cannot properly finance our judiciary as stands, how can we undertake to reconfigure where it will cost more than we are currently spending? So, Madam Speaker, this type of irresponsible decision to put a band-aid or to dress a pig with lipstick and a wig and try to present it to us as Miss Belize or Miss World is totally not the solution that the government promised. The government promised that they would make sure that the judiciary was funded more than it has ever been. The statistics show, with the rise in crime, with the rise of lack of justice in this country, with the cries from the former Chief Justice, with the cries from sitting justices, that this government needs to put their money where their mouth is, put their money where their plan is. They found $76 million to pay a CCJ settlement, but still can't find the money to properly fund the judiciary, and now they want to jump into this reconfiguration that will cost more than we are currently spending, and what we are currently spending is underfunding the judiciary. So we cannot support this motion, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
I recognize the member for Caribbean Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and good morning to colleagues on both sides of the aisle. Madam Speaker, I rise to lend my full support for this senior courts bill, and I want to commend and applaud the hard work of our Attorney General, the Honorable Mrs. Magale Marine Young, and her staff over at the Attorney General's Ministry. I've listened, Madam Speaker, to the Leader of the Opposition, the member for Mesop, speak to the cost of this type of undertaking, and I wholeheartedly agree with him, because I sat on that side of the House condemning the fact that we have underfunded our judiciary for 13 long years. And let me say, Leader of the Opposition, thankfully we have records that when we come to this Honorable House next year for our budget debate, I am hoping that you give the same type of response when we increase the budget to allow for greater efficiency within our judiciary. As a legal practitioner myself in my not too distant past, I can tell you that there is a huge backlog in our system, and we've been complaining about that year in and year out, both on the criminal side, where cases and defendants have been languishing behind bars for some 8 years in some instances, and in our civil courts, where justice has been denied for quite a long time, for years, that they cannot have their matters resolved. What this senior courts bill seeks to do is to amalgamate both our Court of Appeal Act and our Supreme Court of Judicature Act, and vest the authority within our Chief Justice to be the leader of both those courts. She will be aided by the President of the Court of Appeal and also by 2 senior court judges, both on the civil side and on the criminal side. What we will also see, member and Leader of the Opposition, is greater specialty, meaning within our civil side, we will have judges who specialize in constitutional and public law. We will have judges who specialize in family law. We will have judges who specialize in torts and contracts and commercial law, so that again, we have greater efficiency and disposal of these cases. Because like I said, it's been many years that these cases are just backing up. But if we have judges with those specific expertise to deal with these matters, they can deal with them more efficiently. In addition to that, and this is where the increased budget will come in next year, we will have the new offices, new judicial offices created for the master, who will deal with pre-trial issues, interlocutory applications. They will deal with injunctions, pre-trial and case management issues, so that the senior judges do not have to deal with that aspect. That again takes up a lot of the time in our court system. As well, we will also have the appointments of judicial assistants who will aid in the research to help these judges at the Supreme Court level, both on the criminal side and on the civil side. I also want to point out, Madam Speaker, that in addition to this amalgamation towards greater efficiency within our judiciary, there are also other matters that are addressed in the senior courts bill that are worth pointing out. And that is the removal, when it comes to divorce cases, the removal of contentious fault grounds. We know that under the current system, there is default ground-based divorce, whether it is adultery or desertion or cruelty. We're removing that because what we find many times is that children are affected in these relationships that end in very bitter divorces. And so we want, when partners are parting ways, that it's non-contentious. It not only benefits the individuals who are parting ways, but it benefits the family and the children of those marriages. And finally, Madam Speaker, I also want to commend another aspect of this senior courts bill, which removes provisions which are discriminatory based on sex, so that a husband and a wife have equal footing on judicial remedies in divorce proceedings. Madam Speaker, we are in actuality removing archaic and offensive language so as to modernize the language contained in the senior courts bill. So again, I commend the AG's ministry for a job well done, and I look forward to the increased budget, the increased efficiency, the better structure of our senior courts. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the...
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also want to start off by recognizing the hard work of the Attorney General and her team. For her to come up with this vision on how to recreate and restructure the court system in Belize. We know that this court system has had a lot of problems. The previous government had a lot of interference in the court system. And that is something that has to stop. If we want to be able to operate in a completely democratic country, we have to ensure that the government does not have a hand or can outrightly interfere with the work of the court system. Just remember a few years ago, the former Prime Minister was attempting to put one of his buddies that went to study together in law school in the Court of Appeals. Remember him? And it is because some PUP lawyers took the time to do the research and found out that that gentleman had a bad record in the United States of America. He was a criminal. And that is the man that the former Prime Minister wanted to put there at the Court of Appeals to do his bidding and his wishes. We also know when another Court of Appeal justice was put there. Now I think he has just retired because he's suffering of dementia. That we knew that he was there to do the work and the bidding of the former Prime Minister. Those things need to stop. As we develop this country, we have to ensure that every citizen know that they have access to the courts and that they are going to be listened to and that justice will prevail. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or if you're going after the government of Belize. Simple example. Do you think under the previous government a court would have ruled against the former Prime Minister? That have never happened. But it happens today. Why? Because we do not interfere in the judiciary. That is a part of Plan Belize, that we are going to do everything to modernize and to ensure that the judiciary will always be independent of the government of the day. This song that the opposition likes to say about the former Chief Justice, and I quote him that the former Chief Justice was ousted from acting Chief Justice, by the way, let me correct you. The former acting Chief Justice was ousted. She was not ousted. She chose not to apply for the position. And if she does not apply, you can't get the position. Yeah. Actually, she was elevated to the Court of Appeals, thanks to the PUP government. So we never demoted her. We elevated her to the Court of Appeal, young man. If you were to follow it up, you'd have known that. But everything you want to is to play politics. Not everything is about politics, but let's do what is the right thing. And I'm coming to the budget. We have been working on the budget. Do you know that the judiciary, these judges had no health insurance? Your Prime Minister back then was there for 13 years. They spent over $1 billion. But they could think about, oh, we have to fund the judiciary. And now you come here like a hypocrite to say, oh, you have to fund it. 2 years after we get into government. 2 years when you gave us a bankrupt government, when we are fixing the finances of this country, fixing the economy, now you want us to 2 years to be able to come and say, oh, fund the judiciary overnight. When your government had 13 years to do that, you spent $650 million of Petrocaribe money. $500 billion. $500 million from the Petrocaribe and 650 from our own oil money. And yes, you could say, you could make it leave muecas, as we say in Spanish, but you know it is the truth. As I said, the hagwe ball and the hagwe detect the lick. And you are taking the lick right now, my friend. If you would have stopped and do your research, you would not come and embarrass yourself in this National Assembly. When you were talking, I did not interrupt you, young man. I listened to you. No, you listen. If you listen, you would learn a little bit. You would learn a little bit. The point I'm making, Madam Speaker, we are making some fundamental changes to the judiciary in this country. Changes that are going to affect this country positively in the years to come, 10 years, 15, 20 years from now. That is being visionary. That's not being political. It's being visionary that we are going to change the structure to ensure that we can have more timely rulings for the people of this country. We took out the case of the former Prime Minister, remember from Kaya South. We won the case, and the former Chief Justice was really hard on the then Prime Minister. But what did the former Chief Justice did at that time? He never gave it in writing, and supposedly that is, then they're not dead there, you know. It is in the records. It is in the annals that your father spent $1.5 billion without the proper appropriation of this National Assembly, which is a criminal act. But moving on, Madam Speaker, what we're doing is to ensure that this court or judiciary is going to be more independent and more efficient. Under this government, we managed to get some help from the Commonwealth Secretariat, and we brought in some justices. And in less than 1 year, we removed 42% of the backlog that your UDP government left. 42%, that's 40,000 cases that we took care in 1 year. And then you come right here and come pontificate? Yes, you come pontificate. Your father gave no attention to the judiciary because he wanted it like that. And here we come fixing it. And you don't have the backbone to come up and support something that is good just because you want to play politics. Just because you want to play politics. 40,000 cases we have cleared up in 1 year, thanks to the PUP government. Madam Speaker, what we're doing, and yes, I'm glad that the representative from Caribbean Shores has explained of some of the things that we're doing, how to assist the justices to be more efficient. In the Supreme Court in the United States, a place you love, member from Mesopotamia, which I think that where you want to be, not here, the judges have clerks. So what we are doing now, we are putting additional judicial officers. We're creating the posts of masters and judicial assistants and chief registrar. And both the Judicial and the Legal Services Commission have already advertised for for these posts, and we're seeking out actively to recruit them. Now, we may have to come in the months to come, to this National Assembly to ask for a supplementary budget for the judiciary. And then I hope members from Mesopotamia and from Corozal North would get up and support it for us to be able to continue to fund the judiciary. Or if we can't do it by then, certainly at the next national budget, we are going to make more funding available for them. Will it be enough? Probably not. But we are going to start. I would have expected you to come here and to, as a leader that wants to lead this country someday, would be able to come up and say, you know what, this is a good thing. And it's something that all of us need to support. That it is not an issue of politics, but an issue of national importance. When we are on the other side, there are many instances we got up and we supported the government then. So I hope now that you voted against the motion, you said no. You said no. That is the record. Madam Speaker, I urge everyone to support this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, I recognize the Minister of Education, Culture, Science and Technology.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In closing the debate on this bill, allow me first to thank the honourable members for Caribbean Shores and Orange Walk Central, the Honourable Prime Minister, for their interventions on this bill, which I think have gone a long way in clarifying some of the obvious misunderstanding that the Leader of the Opposition has in relation to this bill. I just want to make a few points.
One second, member. Leader of Opposition, member for Mesopotamia, 42B. It's very difficult for anyone in this chair to do justice by standing orders and members if we keep having the interruptions. I kindly ask that we allow members on their feet to do their presentations in silence. Continue, member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a few quick points, Madam Speaker. One, I want to remind all members and the Belizean people that this bill is a very comprehensive bill. This is the bill. Is grounded in widespread consultation. You know, the Attorney General has taken this matter very, very, very seriously, obviously, and engaged in meaningful, widespread consultation with all the stakeholders in the judiciary and in the legal profession and legal community. So that's a very important point to make, that this bill is not something that they sat in the Attorney General's office and created on their own. They engage in meaningful, widespread consultation. The Attorney General as well engaged with other jurisdictions. So they took time to make sure that they looked at what was being done in other jurisdictions across the world, including the Attorney General visited other jurisdictions in the Caribbean and in the Commonwealth to look at what was being done and what would be most effective for Belize. So all of that groundwork was done, critically important, and that is reflected in this senior courts bill. The other issue is, I know that, you know, the UDP does not have a reputation for planning and for structures, but that is what this is all about. The bill is all about putting in place a plan, putting in place a structure for the efficient, effective administration of justice in Belize. You have to start with a plan. You have to start with a structure, and that is what this senior courts bill achieves. It creates the structure, it creates the plan for the effective and efficient administration of justice in Belize. Access to justice, that is right. We all agree, I mean, you know, that we obviously have to do more to allocate more funds to the judiciary. I think we all agree on that point. The judiciary is underfunded, has been underfunded for many, many years. And we have to do more, and as the Honorable Prime Minister has said, his administration, our government, is looking at that seriously. We have a plan and structure in place. Now we will have to provide the funding that is necessary to ensure the effective administration of that plan. The Attorney General has, as the Honorable Member for Caribbean Shore said, I want to place on record, again, our absolute, you know, acknowledgement of the great work that the AG and her team, the Solicitor General, and her team are doing. An absolute dedication and commitment to ensuring that we have a good, sound judiciary and administration of justice in our country, which is so critically important to the national development of Belize, to the economic development of Belize. The former government for 12 years, their legacy as it relates to the judiciary is undermining the judiciary, undermining the rule of law, and we have to move beyond that. And our government, our Attorney General's ministry is absolutely committed to doing that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is that the bill for an act to repeal and replace the Supreme Court of Judicature Act, Chapter 91 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, and the Court of Appeal Act, Chapter 90 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to provide for new positions within the judiciary, to assist in the functioning and administration of the senior courts, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a second time. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to repeal and replace the Supreme Court of Judicature Act, Chapter 91 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, and the Court of Appeal, Chapter 90 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to provide for new positions within judiciary, to assist in the functioning and administration of the senior courts, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Education, Culture, Science, Technology.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is the Patents Amendment Bill 2022. Madam Speaker, I move the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Patents Act, Chapter 253 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to remove the seat of Registrar of Intellectual Property from the Solicitor General, to provide for the appointment of a Registrar of Intellectual Property, to provide in the interest of administrative and operational efficiency for the offices of patent examiners, patent officers, trademarks supervisor, and trademarks examiners, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Leader of Opposition, member from Mississippi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support this bill. As a creative, I know how important intellectual property is. When I was the CEO of the Belize Society of Composers and Authors, I fought very hard, even getting into it with the previous administration, to protect the rights of artists. So I am glad that this administration takes seriously the creative sector in this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member for Freetown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. We appreciate the support of the opposition on this matter. And I close the debate. Yeah.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Patents Act, Chapter 253 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to remove the seat of Registrar of Intellectual Property from the Solicitor General, to provide for the appointment of a Registrar of Intellectual Property, to provide in the interest of administrative and operational efficiency for the offices of the patent examiners, patent officers, trademark supervisor, and trademark examiners, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a second time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to amend the Patents Act, Chapter 253 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to remove the seat of Registrar of Intellectual Property from the Solicitor General, to provide for the appointment of a Registrar of Intellectual Property, to provide in the interest of administrative and operational efficiency for the offices of patent examiners, patent officers, trademarks, supervisor, and trademarks examiners, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Science, and Technology.
Madam Speaker, this is the Non-Governmental Organizations Bill 2022. I move the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Non-Governmental Organizations Act, Chapter 315 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to provide for the appointment of a Registrar of Non-Governmental Organizations, to provide for the appointment of a Deputy Registrar of Non-Governmental Organizations, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. I propose to move further amendments to this bill, which have already been circulated to members.
Member for Freetown.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. We close the debate.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Non-Governmental Organizations Act, Chapter 315 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, provide for the appointment of a Registrar of Non-Governmental Organizations, provide for the appointment of a Deputy Registrar of Non-Governmental Organizations, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a second time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to amend the Non-Governmental Organizations Act, Chapter 315 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to provide for the appointment of a Registrar of Non-Governmental Organizations, to provide for the appointment of a Deputy Registrar of Non-Governmental Organizations, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Public Service, Constitutional and Political Reform, and Religious Affairs.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is the People's Constitution Commission Bill 2022. Madam Speaker, I move the second reading of a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of a People's Constitution Commission to draft and guide the process of promulgating a new constitution for Belize or amendments to the Belize Constitution, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Madam Speaker, as I had mentioned when the bill was first read back in July, it consists of 5 parts, 25 sections dealing with the establishment of the Commission, the composition and appointment of members, the functions and procedures of meetings. It also deals with the administrative provisions of the PCC, including the establishment of the Secretariat, the Good Governance Unit. Madam Speaker, it also speaks about how the recommendations will go before the National Assembly. Very importantly, Madam Speaker, Section 7 deals with the independence of the Commission.
I recognize the Leader of Opposition, Member Mesopotamia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The opposition supports this bill, Madam Speaker. I must say that it is long overdue. I know that Prime Minister Musa had attempted during his administration I'm not sure if anything came of that. However, it is my hope that this people's constitution will discharge its mandate efficiently, and that the goal is to protect rights and to expand rights. So I hope that we don't find ourselves in a position where rights are being taken away, because we live in a democracy. We live in a nation of freedom, a nation where the rule of law trumps everything. And so it really has to be that we are looking at how best we can protect the rights of all of our citizens, equal rights, all of their rights, to end discrimination, to make access to justice, as the Minister of Education mentioned earlier. And I must say that in the House Committee meetings, I raised issues with the committee, and the Minister of Political Reform and Constitution was there, and I am satisfied, cautiously, that he will follow through, the committee will follow through in ensuring that there is as much inclusion as practical. I know there was an issue with the Creole Council, and we discussed that, and so we talked about a subcommittee to make way for these many entities that may feel excluded in such a monumental undertaking. This is not like anything else that we have ever done, and every voice must be heard. And I'd just like to put on record as well, Madam Speaker, that I had raised concerns about the chairperson of the commission. And I would like to say that I saw the chairperson in passing, and I know the chairperson, and maybe what I had said was misconstrued, but I believe to be said given the circumstances, just to put it out there and to put everyone on notice as to whatever conflicts may appear. But I have to say that I was pleased to see that the chairman of the People's Constitution Commission has thus far proven himself to be what I do know him to be. I do know him to be a person of integrity. I do know him to be an upstanding citizen of Belize. His only downfall is that he's a PUP. But I don't think that will interfere. I hope, I pray that that won't interfere. And the reason I bring this up is because, again, I saw him, but more important, I saw him challenging the bill in many ways, asking for clarity, asking to ensure that there wouldn't be any ministerial interference, and to ensure that the People's Constitution Commission would be an autonomous body consulting to try to strengthen our Constitution, expand rights, and protect rights. So I am cautiously optimistic that from this exercise we will have valuable recommendations that the people of Belize can decide in a referendum if that is what they would like to do. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member for Farzone North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to make a quick intervention in this People's Constitution Commission Bill 2022, and I want at some point for this commission to remove that cast of doubt, that shadow or that cloud of doubt that exists in certain sectors of society. I think the leader of the opposition made a point in this particular aspect, but as we debate this bill today, we still have a certain sector within the society who feel that they have been silenced, who feel that their voices, their opinions, their entitlements, their freedoms have been silenced. And so while there is that a cautious, optimistic commitment by government to bring those people within the table, it's very important for us to understand that whatever promulgation, whatever amendment we do to the Constitution, it will affect each and every Belizean, and each and every Belizean has a right to be listened, has a voice, has a privilege. And so we must understand that in this particular exercise, we have to be equal. This is the Bible for the state. This is the Bible for the country, and as such, I would ask of this administration to please have a more direct contact with the people who feel that they have been left out some way or the other. Thank you.
I recognize the member for Futong.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in full support of this bill. I really want to use the opportunity to say to the Belizean people that, this is a historic bill, a historic opportunity for us as a people. And I'm very proud to be a part of a People's United Party government. Once again, it is the People's United Party government that is looking at reform, looking at constitutional reform, looking at how we can more effectively and efficiently govern this country. So I think it provides a unique opportunity for all Belizeans to engage in this process, to have your voices heard. You know, we say it all the time. We have a lot of people on social media who complain about this and complain about everything that's happening in different areas of governance generally, and that's been the case for years and years and years. Well, now we have an opportunity to engage in a meaningful process of having your voice heard, sharing your views on how you would like to see Belize better governed. So this is a unique opportunity, and all of us as citizens of this country should recognize this opportunity, embrace it, take full advantage of it. Let us not squander this historic opportunity for us to make meaningful change in the governance structures of our country. We talk a lot about the monarchy and the future role of the monarchy in the governance of Belize, but that's only one aspect of it. And in many respects, that may be the least important aspect of it, because the monarchy of course, is only ceremonial. But we now have an opportunity to look at the Constitution, look at the structures that underpin that Constitution, and make fundamental change, if that is what we desire to do. So it's an important bill. I know that the Honorable Minister with responsibility for constitutional reform, political reform, and the governance unit understand and appreciate that education is a critical component of this campaign. We have to educate our people. Our people have to be well informed about the Constitution. What does the Constitution mean? What powers flow from the Constitution? What rights and responsibilities flow from the Constitution? So education will be critically important. The education campaign that is carried out as a part of this process is going to be critically important. We have to be able to explain to the Belizean people what options exist. If these are the changes we want to see, what options exist for us to achieve those objectives that we want. So education is critically important. And of course, engaging meaningfully across the country, making sure that we have in place a good, structured consultation process is critically important. You know, on something this important, I think we really have to all be engaged, all hands on deck, to try to support the process, to make sure that when the Commission has its meetings and consultations in particular communities, that we engage the people in those communities and make sure that they are participating. So it's a great opportunity, Madam Speaker. You know, I want to use this opportunity, especially, and I'm sorry the young parliamentarians are no longer with us, because I really want to encourage our young people, our students, our university students in particular, to become involved and engaged in this process. This work that we're doing is for you. It's for future generations, so that we build a stronger governance structure for this country. So it is about you. And I certainly want to encourage our young parliamentarians or young people to be fully engaged in the consultation process as it takes place over the next few months. So thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member for Toledo West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to give my full support to the People's Constitution Commission Bill 2022. Madam Speaker, allow me to say that this is a very important bill, as has been stated by other members who have made their presentations. There is no doubt, Madam Speaker, that fundamentally our Constitution is a very important pillar of how we are governed in this nation. And certainly our Constitution allows us to operate within the framework of the freedom of expression, the freedom of association. It also provides constitutional guarantees on what are our rights as Belizeans and what recourses can be taken when those rights are infringed. So this is a very important process for us, Madam Speaker. And like the other members who have spoken, I too want to join in calling upon Belizeans to look at this as a very important opportunity, an opportunity in which they can engage and participate and have a say in how they would like to see this nation governed. It's important that they attend the consultations, that they share how they want to see this entire process be structured and guided. And I'm certain, Madam Speaker, that the process is going to allow for that. But more importantly, coming out of this entire process is the compilation of the report that is going to be prepared. And certainly, the Belizean people are going to have an opportunity to decide whether those recommendations that are made throughout the consultations is indeed part of what they want to see in how we move forward in terms of how we are governed as a nation. Madam Speaker, I want to lend my support and to also congratulate the Minister of Constitutional Reform and his ministry for certainly undertaking this very, very important process. And let the record show that as a government, we committed under Plan Belize that we were serious about governance reform, about several processes of how we are governed as a nation. And this is one of those fulfillments of our commitment to the Belizean people. And so, Madam Speaker, I wholeheartedly, on behalf of the people of Toledo West, support this bill. I thank you.
I recognize Prime Minister, member for Iwa.
Madam Speaker, I will be short. First of all, I want to commend both the leader of the opposition and the honorable member from Corazon North for supporting this process. But it's important also to clear up the issue of the chairperson, Anthony Chanona. The person who recommended Anthony Chanona to be the chair of this commission is myself. It is not the minister responsible. And I did that simply because I felt that he is a man of high integrity. Whilst he may be a PUP, I think most people have forgotten that he was the first mayor for Bemopan. And even then, he did a stellar performance during his time as the mayor. But when you look at the life of Anthony Chanona, he's a church-going person. He's a man of high spiritual beliefs. He is also works in agriculture. And to make it very clear, he would call a spade a spade. When we were in government and there were a lot of criticisms against us, he did not hesitate to make it public his displeasure on the decisions that we were making as a government. And when the UDP was in government, and I can remember, I think around 2013, around that time, when there was a crisis in the citrus industry, and then Prime Minister Barrow got involved and helped to settle the disputes between the different parties. He did not hesitate to commend Prime Minister Barrow for the work that he did there. I use these as an example that whilst he may be maybe supportive is too strong. He believes in the principles of the People's United Party. He is going to be doing the work as to what he believes is in the best interest of Belize. It is important for me to put that in record. And also I know that there are a lot of different groups that wanted to be in the commission. But we've already been at 25 members. And if we continue taking more and more, it's going to be unwieldy. We'll not be able to do anything. Actually, I'd have wanted to cut down the numbers on the commission. You see, because it's important to point out that the commission is not going to decide what is going to be approved. They are just going to be the vessel for the process. They are going to be out there listening to the recommendations from different people. So, for instance, my brother, the Creole Council, who has not been too active for a very long time, if they want, whenever there's a meeting, they can come and present their proposals, their ideas, their visions as to how they would want to see the changes in the Constitution. We have the Hispanic community. They don't have a member on the board, and right now the Hispanic community is by far the largest ethnic group in Belize. So, we can go on and be able to reach to 100, and it's still not going to be enough. We decided in good faith to cut it at where it is because it's already getting too big. I want to assure everyone that you all have access to speak to the committee. You can put in writing your proposals, or can go and talk to the committee. At the end of the period, we hope that with 1 year, that we want them to be able to finish the consultations, and probably another 3 or 6 months at most to put their recommendations together. That has to go to a referendum. So it's not a matter of whatever they decide, or we from the government will decide what is going to be approved, the changes. It will go to referendum, and at the end of the day, it is the Belizean people that will have the final say. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize Member 4.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And let me say that today will be a historic day in Belize, that this bill is being passed in this honorable House, Madam Speaker, a bill that will lead the way forward, chart the way forward for our country, chart the way forward in the way we govern our country. Because even that language, Madam Speaker, and just now the leader of the opposition said it, we say it over here sometimes, how we are governed. That's a colonial mindset. We are not governed by anybody. We are the governors of our destiny, Madam Speaker. So we have to embrace that. We have to learn that. We have to realize that this is what this bill and this commission and this exercise is going to do. I want to thank the members from this side, the Honorable Minister of Education, the Prime Minister, the member from Toledo West for their interventions, and certainly I want to thank the leader of the opposition for supporting this bill and for the opposition for supporting this bill. Madam Speaker, I was looking through my notes before today's meeting and I realized that it was exactly 1 year ago, October 2021, was when I first presented the proposals for this People's Constitution Commission to the Cabinet. So 1 year later, it took a whole year before we could get to today's process. But I think it's important because this is such an important exercise, such a critical undertaking that the country is doing, that we have to get it right. And we have to make sure that we have everybody participate in this process. So one of the critical points of this legislation is that the consultation process has to be widespread. It has to include traditional social media, every single form for the Belizean people to be able to participate in this process. This is not about individual groups getting to decide the future. This is about the Belizean people deciding the future of this country, the way we govern, the way our laws are established, the way we include everyone, the values that represent us. Madam Speaker, the preamble to the Constitution is a beautiful piece of work, legislation. It includes everything. It's so inclusive. It speaks about the values that we as Belizeans hold close to our heart. And I think it's important that we embrace those values, that we look at the fundamental rights protected by the Constitution, that we expand those rights where they are needed. And that's why it's important that the entire country takes an active role in making sure that this Constitution is a Constitution that we can own. That's why it's being called the People's Constitution. And Madam Speaker, we have to learn from our neighbors in the region, both in the Caribbean and in Central and South America. In the Caribbean, they have undertaken exercises like these, and they have done some consultation. But because of politics, because of different factors, when it goes to a referendum, when it went to a referendum, it failed. And the lessons we have to learn from those. Very recently in Chile, they had a referendum before to decide whether they wanted to amend the Constitution, and the overwhelming vote was yes. 2 years later, when the new Constitution was proposed to them, the overwhelming vote was no. And we have to understand, we have to learn from that. And I think the lessons are that we have to include everyone, we have to consult with everyone, and we have to put politics aside, because this is about Belize, this is about our future. This is about moving away from a representative democracy to a participatory democracy, one in which the people have a say in the way they govern this country. So thanks everyone for supporting this bill, and certainly I look forward to it being supported and approved in the Senate and being assented to very soon, because we want to have this commission work getting underway as soon as possible. The background work, the education material, all of that has already started, but we need to have the commission meeting, and we need to make sure that everyone plays a role in making this Constitution our very own. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to provide for the establishment of a People's Constitution Commission to draft and guide the process of promulgating a new constitution for Belize or amendments to the Belize Constitution, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a second time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to provide for the establishment of a People's Constitution Commission to draft and guide the process of promulgating a new constitution for Belize or amendments to the Belize Constitution, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Committee of the Whole House on Bills.
Honorable members, the House will now resolve into a committee of the whole House to consider the bills that were read a second time. I would like to ask the visitors in the galleries to leave during this portion of the sitting. Thank you.
Bills for third reading.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Science, and Technology.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Belize Constitution 12th Amendment Bill 2022 and passed it without amendment. I now move the third reading of that bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Belize Constitution, Chapter 4 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to establish senior courts of Belize and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto be read a third time. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to amend the Belize Constitution, Chapter 4 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to establish the senior courts of Belize and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Science, and Technology.
Madam Speaker, I rise to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Senior Courts Bill 2022 and passed it with amendments. I now move the third reading of that bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to repeal and replace the Supreme Court of Judicature Act, Chapter 91 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, and the Court of Appeal Act, Chapter 90 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, provide for new positions within the judiciary to assist in the functioning and administration of the senior courts and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto be read a third time. All those in favor, kindly say aye. All those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to repeal and replace the Supreme Court of Judicature Act and the Court of Appeal to provide for new positions within the judiciary to assist in the functioning and administration of the senior courts and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Science, and Technology.
Madam Speaker, I rise to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Patents Amendment Bill 2022 and passed it without amendment. I now move the third reading of that bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Patents Act, Chapter 253 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to remove the seat of Registrar of Intellectual Property from the Solicitor General, to provide for the appointment of a Registrar of Intellectual Property, to provide, in the interest of administrative and operational efficiency, for the offices of Patent Examiners, Patent Officers, Trademark Supervisor, and Trademark Examiners, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto be read a third time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to amend the Patents Act to remove the seat of Registrar of Intellectual Property from the Solgen, to provide for the appointment of a Registrar of Intellectual Property, to provide in the interest of administrative and operational efficiency for the offices of Patent Examiners, Patent Officers, Trademark Supervisor, and Trademark Examiners, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Science, and Technology.
Madam Speaker, I rise to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Non-Governmental Organizations Amendment Bill 2022 and passed it with amendment. I now move the third reading of that bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Non-Governmental Organizations Act, Chapter 315 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, provide for the appointment of a Registrar of Non-Governmental Organizations, provide for the appointment of a Deputy Registrar of Non-Governmental Organizations, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto be read a third time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to amend the NGO Act to provide for the appointment of a Registrar of NGO to provide for the appointment of a deputy registrar of NGO, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Public Service, Constitutional and Political Reform and Religious Affairs.
Madam Speaker, I rise to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the People's Constitution Commission Bill 2022 and passed it with amendments. I now move the third reading of that bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to provide for the establishment of a People's Constitution Commission to draft and guide the process of promulgating a new constitution for Belize or amendments to the Belize Constitution, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a third time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to provide for the establishment of a People's Constitution Commission to draft and guide the process of promulgating a new constitution for Belize or amendments to the Belize Constitution, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
I recognize the Leader of Opposition, Member for Mesopotamia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Definitely a monumental day. The opposition supported so many bills, even though Prime Minister rail up with me, quarrel with me, even when I'm supporting his government. But, Madam Speaker, when I was speaking to the Children's Parliamentarian, my issue of national importance.
I was just about to ask
I'm sorry,
you.
yes. I would just like to congratulate our Taiwanese friends on their National Day that we just celebrated, and let them know that we stand in solidarity. I know that China is being very aggressive and threatening their territorial integrity and their sovereignty, but we stand with them. My issue of national importance is crime, Madam Speaker. I was just going over my notes. I thought we had a longer day. And rest in peace to PC Arzu, a female police officer who was gunned down a few days ago, shot in her car in Dangriga with another police officer, shot in the head. And this has to stop, Madam Speaker. I accept that crime is not a political matter. And the Minister of Police can confess that where I support him, I have gone on record at the dissatisfaction of my own political colleagues for supporting him when I believe that he was right in the instance of the marijuana legalization, who is Prime Minister so cleverly torpedoed, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, this issue of crime, when the opposition criticizes, it is not in my mind to bring down the minister, to bring down the government. It is our responsibility to bring attention to all that is ailing our society, and anyone and everyone must accept that we are in the midst of a crisis. Now, what bothers me is that in other nations, in other democracies, even in this country, previous prime ministers, when you would have the crisis that we would have, would get on the television, call a press conference and say, listen, this is unattainable, we cannot continue like this, and try to reassure the public. You have a lot to say in here, but bodies are dropping, your police officers are being killed, you're the chair of the national security, right? And you have nothing to say. Crime is everybody's problem. But we need to hear that from you. I am going to admit that we can't expect a problem that has persisted for 41 years, probably before that, when George Price was there, to be solved in one term or in 1 year. But you are failing, and it's okay. But let us accept that. Let us step out there and reassure the public that, okay, we understand this thing is getting out of control, and here's what we're going to do. We don't see that. We don't see any answers, any solutions. We don't hear from the vocal members of the government on these matters. Mr. Norris Flowers, retired police officer, gunned down in Corozal. The gentleman from San Ignacio, the American that nationalized, gunned down at his business establishment. Young kids, gunned down. We had a spate of 7 or 5 murders in 7 days. That is a crisis, Minister. I sometimes believe they put you in that ministry because the Prime Minister knows you want to be Prime Minister, to set you up. The point is, you need to step in front of the mic and own this situation and reassure the Belizean people what is going to be done. I know you're a leftist, liberal government. So being tough on crime is not in your lexicon, but we need to do something. I see that you're a fan of your friend in El Salvador. You know, to play with them. And yes, we are a nation of laws, and we are a nation of constitution, but there has to be something that your government can do. The Minister of Police and the Prime Minister, who's the chair of national security, to stop these killings. Every day, we had the PCR zoo. She passed away, God bless her soul. Then this morning, as at the Conda House meeting, a Coast Guard was in a shootout because somebody drive up on his car and emptied the clip in his car, and he fired back and he killed that person. Thank goodness he was able to defend himself. But then a woman is on life support right now in KHMH. This is not about politics. I don't want this to be the case. I would much rather argue with you and debate with you on other matters. But something has to be done. And the silence from the government is deafening. I don't know, I remember back in the days you used to have Rambotong, back in the old man time. I don't know if that's the way you used to. But those of us, regular citizens, I remember there was a threat reported against me. And you said, boy, that's how you go. Your pa never give me no security when I'm a leader of the opposition. I don't know if you take these things lightly, but it's not good for tourism. It's not good for economic development, for investor confidence. It's not good for our citizenry. Plan Belize promise citizen security as a priority agenda item. And we are not seeing that. And it gives me no pleasure to point this out. I wish that you could resolve this. And what I'm asking for in the first instance is to get up and call a press conference and face the nation and accept that we have a problem. This liberal approach, this leftist approach that, okay, yes, there is social issues, there is poverty, we understand that, but there must be justice. There must be justice for PCR Zoo. There must be justice for all of these people that are losing their lives, them and their families. Heaven forbid it could be one of us, because there is no law and order in this country. People are killing with impunity. Murderers are acting as if they don't respect the authority. Your commissioner of police, when he made a campaign for Wiley job, he had a super cup. He could get everything done. No, nothing is happening. I don't know if it is he to blame as much as it is the liberal executives at the Ministry of Police. I'm saying I understand you guys are liberals, but we have to do something. We've tried the liberal approach. It's time to get tough on crime. And I have been in this house patient with you, Minister of Police. I gave an impassioned speech maybe 2 years ago, where rather than criticize you, I use my own experience as a teenager and the mistakes I made. But the reason that I was able to turn my life around is because I had to pay. I had to pay my debt to society. In our society right now, no one is paying. I don't know if it is because of political favoritism. I don't want to speculate that. I just believe that it is a problem that has overwhelmed successive administrations. And rather than whisper in the ear of your Deputy Prime Minister, member from Orange Walk Central, you should be listening to me and taking my concerns seriously. Because you are the Prime Minister. He is the chair of the national security, and we have a national security crisis internally. And your Minister of Police needs help. You both should be calling. I remember Prime Minister Barrow did it when he was Prime Minister in his administration, because things got out of hand then. I am not trying to paint a picture to the Belizean people that under the UDP, Belize was crime-free. But the PUP promised that national security, citizen security would be a priority and they would fix it. And it has gotten worse. So I'm asking, where are the solutions? I'm asking you to face the nation. This is a serious thing. Every time these bodies are dropping, there should be, so I don't want to see a press officer from police. I don't want to see Chester. I want to see the executives, because they follow you guys. And if the policy of the Minister of Police, if the policy of the Prime Minister is this soft on crime approach, is this liberal approach, we are never going to get anywhere. There has to be consequences. You talk about the amalgamation and justice and how you're creating access to a judiciary that will work and there will be no interference. Where is justice? Nobody's getting justice in the criminal justice system. These murderers continue to kill unabated and nobody is being held accountable. So what is the problem? Your government was elected to solve the problem. Your government campaigned on a Plan Belize manifesto that said citizen security would no longer be an issue in this country. And everyone has to agree. Again, PCR Zoo, rest her soul. As I'm driving here today, a Coast Guard officer, Mr. Banswana or Bansu, was fired upon. He had to kill somebody. This is the reality of Belize. Fix it. Being silent and spinning and ignoring and pretending as if the problem is not there will not allow it to go away. You guys said you could do it. I hope and I pray that you could do it, but it needs to be done. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Minister of Police.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if I may, first of all, in responding to the Leader of the Opposition, pay my respects as the Minister of Home Affairs and to wish my heartfelt condolences to PCR Zoo. She was a member of Squad 95, which was the first squad under my tenure as Minister of Home Affairs to graduate, to pass out. And so that one certainly hit me heavy, because as everyone in Squad 95 knows, we promote only the finest in our department, and they were certainly, and they are certainly, exceptional characters that we produced. And so I give my heartfelt condolences to her family, to her mom. I spoke with her yesterday. This is devastating, not just to the family, but to all members of the Belize Police Department. We are mourning this loss very, very seriously, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, as the member for Mesopotamia always does when he comes to this House of Representatives, He takes the issue of crime as a political football to try to score points. But what he doesn't tell us is that when his father handed over this nation in 2020, there were 29 established gangs in a 6-mile radius. These are gangs that formed under the United Democratic Party's reign of abandonment and neglect for 13 years on the south side of Belize City. And so for him to come here to this house to pontificate on crime when it is that they abandoned the people of Southside and did not offer them opportunities.
Member for Caribbean Shores, 42B, I will insist, please. Continue.
He knows very well, Madam Speaker, the damage left behind by Hurricane Dean in Belize City, especially, Madam Speaker. But we are not here crying and whining the way he is. We are rolling up our sleeves in the Ministry of Home Affairs and we are working, Madam Speaker. One of the biggest things in this position is to be humble, Madam Speaker, to know that crime is not just a policing issue, to be able to reach out to my cabinet colleagues and to know that they are going to answer that call. The Minister of Education has answered that call, offering 40 scholarships to at-risk youth at ITVET. The Minister of Youth and Sports, the Honorable Rodwell Ferguson, has participated in so many training activities for our young people because we know we have to break the cycle. This is not an easy fix, member. This is not about band-aid fixes. This is about the long walk back. You rightly pointed out it's 41 years that has taken us to this point. But you gave us this broken vehicle. Your party gave us this and you want us to fix it within a year. When in fact, this is going to take time. And you know that. Deep down you know that. You understand that. This is a big problem. And most recently, Madam Speaker, like I said, it's all about collaboration. Most recently, for the past 3 months, my ministry has been working along with the Ministry of Rural Transformation because we acknowledge that crime is not city-based. Of the last 11 murders, only 2 were in Belize City, you know. The rest are out district, but because we have the commercial capital in Belize City and the media capital, we tend to highlight crimes only in Belize City. But our ministry acknowledges that we need to get the resources out district to the villages as well. We need to empower our community leaders because that is what Plan Belize is. It is reaching out to all the stakeholders so that they can play their part in our fight against crime. Because it's not just our issue in the ministry, it is each and every one of us in this house. It is all our village leaders and alcaldes. It is our police department. Who might I add, Madam Speaker, I was fortunate to be in Dangriga yesterday and to listen to the positive success stories coming not from the police department, you know, coming from the chairmen and chairwomen of the respective villages in the Stan Creek district, applauding the effort of our hard-working police officers. They don't get thanks enough, Madam Speaker. But we have a serious problem. Member, I will agree with you on that. Just this year, again, speaking about the hard work our officers do, 103 illegal firearms have been confiscated off the streets. And you would again think, well, Belize City must be the center for that. No, San Pedro, 18 illegal firearms. Orange Walk, 13 illegal firearms off the streets, again, thanks to the hard work of our police officers. But there is more that we need to do. We acknowledge that. We need more officers out on the streets, so we are in the process of recruiting 150 new officers. Yes, we are also in the process of taking out the rogue police officers, and that has us down to about 2,000 right now in terms of our formation, but we need to get those numbers up. And at the same time, get the adequate resources out to the villages and the districts and towns. So, Madam Speaker, we acknowledge that it's a long walk back. It will not happen overnight. A lot happens in our society. We need to look at the education. Hopefully soon we will have free education across the country all the way to tertiary. That is something that will certainly improve the lives of our Belizean citizens and certainly add to citizen security. These are things that are in Plan Belize that will help to alleviate our crime situation. And so, Madam Speaker, I end today by not just extending my condolences to all of the loved ones lost, all Belizean lives lost, and to PCR Zoo's family, but to all Belizeans to say we need a collective effort. Let us all join in this fight against crime. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member for Corzal North.
Madam Speaker, may I bring a matter of urgent national importance, and it has to do with the rehabilitation of the Philip Golson Highway, and by extension, the Ramate Road, which traverses directly in the heart of Corzal North. Madam Speaker, 2022 has been a very peculiar year. Actually, it's unprecedented in terms of the rainfall that this country has received. All of this is just a manifestation of the effects of climate change. What we want to caution the government and particularly those responsible in addressing the effects of climate change and mitigating the impact that it has on the populace is that what's happening in 2022 is just a reflection of what is coming along the way. This unprecedented level of rainfall is going to become part of the norm in the everyday lives of Belizeans. And the effects that are now being seen will just start to explode if we don't take corrective action. I want to refer my comments precisely to the work being done at the Ramate Road. This is the rehabilitation of the Philip Golson Highway, where in August of this year, we had some very, very severe rains to the point that we had to assist our local citizens in basically getting rid of the flooding waters. What is worrisome, and Prime Minister, since the member for Cayo South is not here, is that in speaking to the contractor, the component of drainage was not in the contract. And so when work started, there was an existing drainage that practically serves the half of the community of Pachacan. And when the rain started, we knew of areas exactly where water tends to flood. And so we had to assist, and we had to request the assistance of the contractor. And thanks to them that they were able to bring in their equipment and have the water flowing out. But what is worrisome now is that the money is not there. I don't know if the savings, the so-called savings that the member for Cayo South mentioned last year of some 60+ million, included the removal of that aspect. When you're building a road without proper drainage, it's like building a house without a proper foundation. It's prone to fail. And this is exactly what we're seeing. We had works done in the area, works that had to be practically removed for water to be able to cross. But at this point in time, the actual work is continuing. And so, Prime Minister, I ask of you to look into the issue of drainage. Close to that area that I'm speaking that is flooded, we have the primary school of Pachacan, which serves the entire community. If we don't address that issue, and there continues to be some severe rains, the community of Pachacan will be affected, and the children who attend those schools, that school will be affected. So I will ask of you to look into that. I have a similar situation in the rest of my communities. And I happen to see the issue happening in Concepcion. Concepcion falls under the constituency of Corzal Southwest, where similarly works were done, but the issue of drainage was not taken into consideration. So that when we had the rains, areas that were normally not flooded are now under threat because of the improper infrastructure that we have in place. And so that's one of the issues that I want to address. And so, Madam Speaker, in closing, I will ask of your indulgence in expressing my heartfelt condolences to the family of Jorge Vargas. Jorge Vargas was the student of Centro Escolar Mexico,
who passed away on the 12th of October as a consequence of a traffic accident. Jorge, Madam Speaker, was a very bright and talented student who had a future ahead of him. An accident cut his life short. And why do I bring, while Jorge, he and his family, they are part of the family of Corozal North, what strikes me the most and what has got my attention close to my heart is that I have a son just as young as Jorge who travels that same destination, Escuela Secundaria Técnica México, every day. And that's precisely one of the risks that our young children face. My condolences to the whole family, but I want to appeal as well to the ministry responsible for transport to look into the issue of accidents caused as a consequence of, I would want to say, drivers not knowing when to yield to ambulances, when to yield to the police, when to yield to the security forces. I gather that one of the reasons that this collision happened is that the driver of the vehicle that Jorge was going in did not yield to an ambulance.
Member,
and so,
I acknowledge your condolences, but we are on the adjournment, and it would be Standing Order 13, one matter of the public importance.
if I may ask of your indulgence, Madam Speaker, I just brought it up because of the seriousness of the matter. All I'm saying, Madam Speaker, is look, it would be good if the ministry responsible for transport could look into how we can address the issue of educating drivers in order for us to avoid these kinds of incidences. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Do we have the Minister for Sustainable Development responding? No. I'm acknowledging the public matter regarding the rehabilitation of the road. Philip Golson, particularly Remate.
Madam Speaker, unfortunately, the Minister of Infrastructure Development is not here to be able to answer some of the questions. The problem is, as the Minister from Corozal North mentioned, is the issue of climate change, that at one time the rains that we would have would come over a longer period, and now they come all like within a few hours you have several inches of rain, and the drains or the culverts that were put in place cannot handle those large volumes of waters. So when these roads were designed, they did not take into consideration that the issues of climate change and the amount of rain that we get in a short period. And those are designs that when we came into government, that was already being done and worked out, so it would have been difficult. But what the minister is doing right now, if you were to look at the Northern Highway where they're upgrading the highway, they are literally removing new drains that were put or culverts that were put, and to put bigger ones because they're realizing that it's not working. I am certain that the minister will take into consideration now in the Remate Road that they will have to be putting bigger roads, especially because there's an area that's a catchment area, it's a low-lying area. So certainly that will have to be looked at, and I'm confident that the minister will look into that. But to point out, though, I can't allow you to just to leave this part where you said that the $60 million was saved, as if giving the impression that they were cutting from the design of the Remate Road. The $60 million that was saved was from the Caracol Road, because it was very wide. They never need a road so wide, so they redesigned it, built just as good as it that they did a little bit smaller, so they saved millions of dollars. And then the same thing with the Halova Bridge, where I think the previous government was constantly, before the price was going up and up, they were over-designing, and so with the new design, they managed to save. I think between the both of them, it is a little over 50-something million, and I don't think it's 60. I will bring it up to him just at the last cabinet meeting. the minister is saying now that as of now, they are changing all the culverts and making sure that they will not use any culverts that's less than 3 feet. It's going to be 3 feet and above. But secondly, an important aspect of it is that we as a people need to do our part. We don't clean the drain in front of us. We throw the garbage in the drains. We clog up the drains because we want to go across, so the water cannot run. So you have this backflow that creates the floodings. And the drains themselves, or the culverts themselves, because it has not been cleaned for many, many years, the water cannot run. So what they're doing right now is that they're coming up with a program where they're going to be cleaning out as many culverts as they possibly can. And they're using a very, how can I say, a common sense approach to it. What they'll be, because one way is to use a very, very high pressure hose and trying to wash it. But one of the easiest ways they're saying that they found it is that they could put a tire on one end with a chain and just pull it through the culvert itself to clean out and loosen all the dirt and everything that's in there. So there's a number of factors that is creating the flooding. Bigger drains or culverts, and also from appealing to our citizens to don't throw garbage in the drains, to clean in front of their drains, and also those that are in construction, to ensure that if they need to move from the highway into a property, that they should not be throwing dirt and compacting so that the trucks can go on the other side. So it's some different aspects that have to be looked at, the cleaning of the drains on a regular basis. And so, but thanks for bringing that the issue of the Ramate Road to attention. And I'm confident that the Minister of Infrastructure Development will take a look at it. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, the question is that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. The House now stands adjourned.